Proud to have here Jared Kingston from 3GNY, one of the board members, officials.
Volunteer.
Volunteer, to help unpack this story a little bit and get your reflections as well. I promise it'll be painless, and hopefully you're all taking it in. How many of you have been on a trip through Poland, Europe like that? Very familiar, right? It's did you meet some of those people that we saw in the film? And I felt it was all very familiar to my experience. Jared, I would love to hear some of your first reflections. This is your first time seeing it, just
Yes.
kind of your first reflections of the film.
Yeah, absolutely. So
There you go.
there we go. Might be running low, but we'll see. So I volunteer for an organization called 3GNY, which is an educational nonprofit founded by the grandchildren of Holocaust survivors. And what we do, aside from being a community for the third generation, is we go to schools across the city, across the state, and educate students on the Holocaust. And specifically what we do, which I thought, which I really took from the movie, was we tell one person's story and we create a human experience from a historical event. And I kept seeing just woven throughout, right? These are people, these are people. And that's what we try to do, and that's our goal. Bring a face to, yeah, no, it was up. It might be low on battery, yeah. Thank you. To, oh no. Yeah. Okay, we're good. Bring a face and a specific story to one of the worst things that happened in the 20th century, or the worst thing.
Thank you. Will you be sending all these schools to see this film? That's
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's one of the things I love about this film. It's an engaging way to enter this topic because it's not. I mean, the camps. I actually have to handle to acknowledge the filmmaking of how the moment of the camps was handled in a movie that's so rowdy and so all over the place. And it's a road trip film and it's a buddy film and it's like there's so much going on there. And then to have that silence in that moment really gives the respect where it needs to be, and often I think is the case on a lot of these trips. One of the things I wanted to also bring up as just the inspiration to this film for those who are interested. Jesse Eisenberg did one of these trips and went to these locations with his wife, not with his strange cousin, and went to actually look for his aunt's or his great aunt's house, and that's really what inspired this story. And then he kind of like developed these characters and developed a whole story around it. But understanding very well that this is not just him trying to tell a story of a road trip, but him trying to really dive into both, I think personal issues, and of course remembering, and that seems to be a big theme within the film. What are your thoughts on those themes from the film?
Being the grandchild of Holocaust survivors, I saw a dichotomy, which I think we see a lot in our community. So you have the one person who's like very stoic and rigid, and you're keeping it all in. And I think you see that with survivors too, the people who actually survived the camps, but keeping it all in because it's a lot and it stays with us. I didn't coin this phrase, but someone once described it as, like, for the third generation experience is carrying the Holocaust in your pocket. It's something that's just always with you. But then you see the other one who isn't really taking life seriously and just flies off the rail. And that's also a mechanism, I think, to cope with family trauma and having someone that you love so much go through an unspeakable experience.
And it's really fascinating how this film really brings out those emotions and builds it. It builds it slowly until obviously it kind of explodes a little bit.
Yeah.
And as good writing often is, and I again give Jesse Eisenberg a lot of credit not only for writing but directing it too. A little bit more from behind the scenes of the film. Of course, it's an interesting choice, and I'm curious. Kieran Culkin. to me, one of the least Jewish, the Culkin family in general, Home Alone, nothing Jewish there. Of course, Succession, not a very Jewish family as far as I could tell. I don't remember a Hanukkah episode. Of course, his acting is fantastic, and he's in that character whose like moods are up and down. It was really fantastic. What do you think of the casting?
Yeah, I mean, I think he really took to the role. If I didn't know his background, I would think that was the grandchild of a Holocaust survivor. But I think too, just like the nuances from both of them, they really, I don't know how they did it, but well, Jesse comes from this community, but Kieran, he really took to what it is to be, the descendant of survivors. And I like the scene in the graveyard too, I thought was really beautiful. I think that's when we started to see a little bit of that unraveling, right? Keeping that guard up and then starting to feel more emotional. And I thought he just did beautifully in that scene.
Really fantastic. I'll also note the guy who plays the tour guide is actually a filmmaker. He's not an actor. And the line where he says, "Bye, David," which I think is one of the funniest moments in the film. He's improvised and just like came out on set that day. Going back to the camps, I also remember in the discussion that for the crew itself, the experience of shooting in the camps, obviously they shot there, that wasn't set, all of this was really shot on location, gave that experience that often the groups go through in terms of really having a strong emotional moment. Jennifer Grey noted that she was that for her it was just so heavy that she tried to detach herself, and ultimately it broke her down. And it's really an interesting, almost psychological experiment to take. When you go there and to see what that brings out of you and how that reminds you of like just how real it is. And I have to say that that's one of the things that I feel is most important about this film, is that in a time where there's Holocaust denial, where there's questions of who's genocide and what, to remind the world that this was real and that this is something that should not be forgotten, and it's something that we need to learn from today, not just remember for the past's sake, but for today's sake. I think that's really one of the most important things of this film, and by doing it with this cast and in this way, it might engage a new generation.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hope, right? Two things I think. When I was watching the camp scene, I felt anxious, first of all, but I kept thinking too, like, I don't think I could go into a gas chamber. I haven't been on a heritage trip to Europe. My father has. I haven't done it. I don't think I could go into a gas chamber. Like, emotionally, I don't think I would be able to do it. I'd have to wait outside. I think everyone has their own experience, but I think you really felt it in the film. And to your point, Isaac, like that silence, especially on the drive back, it allows you to sit with it. And then Kieran broke down in the car too. I'm remembering that now too. Yeah, that would be me. 100% that would be me. But I think also to your point about just the Jewish experience right now, October 7th, one thing that the actor played the tour guide said at the beginning, which I thought was beautiful, he just said he loved, he studies Eastern Europe, but he loved Jewish culture and how it was just diverse and different and a blend of different things. And I think that whether or not you come from survivors of the Holocaust, like that's just the Jewish experience, right? We're a blend of different cultures because we went to different countries, and it's messy and it's beautiful and it's tragic and it's sad. And I just felt like they captured all of that so well in the movie, right? With very intense emotional scenes and then humorous scenes. That's what it is.
Thank you, and I think that's they really gave you. You don't have to go on the trips now, the heritage trips. You've just experienced it, but I think they really did it beautifully. Yeah. One last anecdote, and then we'll take a couple of comments from the audience. During this was just a moment during the interview. I was thinking about Kieran's performance, and Kieran said that it was a little strange for him because the lead actor, who he's like, they have all these intense scenes together and they're working off of each other constantly, but Jesse is also not just the actor that's with him; he's also the director. And when Jesse came over to him and said to him, "Listen, Kieran, I have a few notes." Kieran was like, "Wait, what? The actor's telling me that he has a few notes? I have a few notes for you. Let me." And I think that's a part of it, is that Kieran really brought himself to that role in many ways, and you see that character is there. We have a comment over here and then over there. We'll pass the microphone around. And I'll take this moment also to remind everyone, November 1st it opens in theaters, and tell all the groups you can to go see it together.
The film was incredibly moving. Thank you. I have spent time at Auschwitz, and I'm just wondering, when the scene at Majdanek was filmed, did they go there the day before, a couple of days, and work out the acting part of it, or did they film the first time they arrived?
Sorry, this my staple just got stuck to my shirt. Not a metaphor for anything. Actually, no, they shot there. This was like a very small budget indie film, and they shot there on location, on the spot, with going through the experience. Even it was mentioned like they had no time to do real production there. So, as you may know, lighting is crucial for film, and it's a little hard to light in a death camp, and that's something that they just like were constantly trying to figure out, and everybody was really going through this experience in the space at the time. Obviously, also they had very limited access to the space, so that was also important.
And it just occurred to me a few minutes ago that the music is Chopin, who was Polish, and obviously it's not by chance that he used so much of it in the film, right?
I noticed some Mozart in there too, who's German, and that's it is real. I thought at one point I heard Mozart's concerto in A minor, which I happen to know that. I'm not that guy. I happen to know that because recently somebody shared with me a YouTube of a Rosh Hashanah, a high holiday prayer, set to Mozart's concerto in A minor, and it resonated here when I was hearing that. I saw one more hand over here and then one down here. Sorry. Wait, we're going to pass you the mic. We're passing a microphone around.
Hi, I love the film, but I do have one question. When they go to the house and the neighbors, see them, I thought maybe there would be some connection. They might have remembered his grandmother, or was that deliberate, like they weren't going to be able to connect? Because they bothered with that whole scene of them coming out and seeing put the stones down, but then I felt it like left it very empty.
So I don't know the specifics of that scene, but I was thinking the same thing. Like, if I was there, I'd be knocking on the door. I want to go inside. So I will say, right. So when my family went back to Poland in 1995, I believe, my grandfather took my father and his siblings to the apartment where he grew up. And lo and behold, there was a family that he knew that was still living in that apartment. And they said, "Oh, I don't know if you remember, but before they sealed off the ghetto, you gave us a clock. Do you want that back?" And they gave my grandfather his family clock back, and we still have it. It's special, right? Those are the connections. It doesn't happen a lot. Maybe that's part of the series of miracles that Jesse mentions in the film. But yeah, I would definitely be knocking on that door and going in to see where I come from.
It's really interesting because we've seen that story told, and obviously there's the family that's like afraid of the Jews coming into their house, and there's the family that embraces it and feels horrible about it, and this film goes through all those notes again, but does it in a way that it doesn't hit any of the cliches. It kind of, in some ways, even turns it on its head and does the unexpected in all those moments. So when we expect them to go into the house, they're actually, it's a whole that's a different scene. It was a different scene. It was them trying to communicate with the guy on the porch. And
mispronouncing stones, right? I don't think he knew the word, yeah.
Yeah, no. And done, I think, with a lot of nuance there in terms of just that foreign experience. But having that having that kind of not stepping into the cliches was, I think, one of the powerful elements in this film. Okay, we see, we had one more down here, and I promised this was the last one. Sorry, but you have to wait for the microphone.
It's very interesting, the idea of how do we deal with this? How do we deal with emotion? How do we accept this? Do we go here? Do we go there? And how do we remember? But one of the things I thought was so important, the way he talked about the survivor, the entrepreneur, and the son in the basement doing pot. And that was such a weird connection. Just really weird.
I think it's also one of the things that this film emphasized was that generation, how these generations and where they are in terms of, there was a generation of survivors and immigrants, and where their grandchildren are, who I guess also there's another cliche of being on couches in the basement, and that after the second generation worked hard and became doctors and lawyers, and then the third generation kind of got a little lost. And this film is definitely about a lost generation in some ways, and about mental health that plays into it, and how that has been passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah, I think there's a theme there for 3Gs. I'm making a little bit of a generalization, but to make our lives count, I think we're all the products of sacrifices, right? People sacrifice for all of us. But I think as a 3G, we really know more about what those sacrifices actually were, and the randomness of chance that we're alive and here. And so I think there's a drive to make our lives matter, right? And make the world a better place. Tikkun olam.
Jared, thank you so much for being here and sharing the stage. Folks, thank you so much. Please join us tomorrow night for another film, The Remarkable Life of Ibelin, and much more coming up. So please be on top of your emails. Thank you very much.